Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This is awesome! Hello and welcome, and a very happy new year to you, Cheap Shot Nation. Trying something slightly different with this particular review. It is Guilty as Charged, ECW's final pay-per-view of their existence until WWE would rekindle the license in 2006. Took place on the 7th of January 2001 from the ever faithful Hammerstein Ballroom in Manhattan, New York, and it was attended by 2,500 ravenous ECW fans. I'm going to take you through everything that happened. You're watching Cheap Shot Entertainment, and you are the Cheap Shot Nation. I'm your host Luke, and let's get some hardcore action. Your first match of the evening featured Joey Matthews and Christian York versus Cyrus and Jerry Lynn. In a very short-lived match, as you can see behind me. That's the new thing that I'm doing. I'm putting the pay-per-view on in the background. Unfortunately, Joey Matthews and Christian York were attacked by the Baldies straight off the back. Jerry Lynn would then come out and hit a package pile driver, and Cyrus would eventually get the pin as the match started up. But yeah, it certainly wasn't a great match, but the crowd seemed to enjoy it, and the Baldies took payment from Jerry Lynn and Cyrus in order to do what they're doing. The New York Street Thugs, as they were called. Now, the match finished with the package power drive, and like I say, Cyrus getting the victory, and then as ECW does, it carries on. But for this particular match, because it was actually a match, I'm giving it half a cheap shot out of 5. So the next match, which would also be a tag team match, would actually follow a Jerry Lynn promo. He says he is the whole effing show. Should give you an indication of what's to come later. And incidentally, I'm wearing my Sabu t-shirt. I thought that was appropriate. But the show actually starts. This is a WrestleCrate t-shirt, by the way. WrestleCrate UK. Show actually starts with an actual tag team match that actually has tag teams in it and doesn't involve anybody running in. Tag team titles on the line. It is Danny Doring and Roadkill, who are the current ECW tag team champions, and they are against Julio De Niro and EZ Money. And of course, great names as you would expect from ECW. So the match was very hard fought, actually. I mean, you've got the tag team champions. Everyone wants to go after the tag team champions. Doring and Roadkill have a really good chemistry with each other, which has allowed them to be the tag team champions going into the end of the life of ECW, and they will be remembered as the very last pay-per-view tag team champions. Of course, at this point, WWE heavily involved with the ECW management and things like that, almost giving Paul Heyman loans and things going into their last few shows. But after a hard fought match, it was the Boogie Bang hit by Doring and Roadkill puts De Niro away after a really challenging match for the champions. Frantic tag team match to actually start the show, because I don't count really the first match because it just ended up in people getting beaten up, which is fine, but obviously for me that's not enjoyable. Having not watched a lot of ECW TV, I get the idea that it was supposed to be frantic and things like that, and this match definitely shows that without people running in to interrupt matches. And yeah, I'm going to give this one, because it was really good. I really enjoyed this match. Great tag team match to open the show. I'm going to give this one 3 cheap shots out of 5. Really enjoyable tag match and a great way to start the show. So pretty much as soon as the last match had finished, the challengers attacked the champions, which gave rise for Nova to make his comeback, because Chris Hammerich was at ringside with Easy Money and De Niro. This match, I get the feeling, was a grudge match. It started off hot and heavy on the outside of the ring. It would eventually go back in the ring and would end with a crossface chicken wing. Now, I haven't seen a crossface chicken wing for a long time on a WWE show or an ECW show or whatever, and it's a move that should be brought back. Someone needs to take up that excellent finishing move, for me made famous by Bob Backlund, one of my management / wrestling heroes in recent years, because I really appreciate how technical he was, and the fact that he loved his character back in 1994 when he was on in a program with Bret the Hitman Hart and Owen Hart at the top of the company. But we're talking about ECW, and it would be that would end after Chris Chetti would come down to get revenge on Nova, who had retired him and sent him packing away from ECW. He wasn't happy with this. He came down to the ring. Now, based on this, to get revenge, I think that I'm going to give this a 1 cheap shot out of 5. Because of the interference, it wasn't a very long match. Again, it was a decent match. You can tell the company was on the edge, just chucking everything at it, a bit like the WCW pay-per-views, which we are going to review as well. But really, this match, it could have been so much better than it actually was, but it just wasn't given enough time to do that. So therefore I had to give it a 1 cheap shot out of 5. So with Chris Chetti in the ring, Louis Dangerously, who you can currently see on my TV, would come into the ring and deck the proper referee after Chris Chetti would come in and claim that Chris Hemmering had won the match. We'd then get to see Little Spike Dudley, who would end up by March on WWE TV, making his in-ring debut against, in the TLC match at WrestleMania. Who would have thought he would go from the Hammerstein Ballroom to the Astrodome in Houston? Spike Dudley makes his way down to the ring, hits an acid drop, and the match continues for Nova to hit the Kryptonite Crunch for the actual win. And Steve Corino would then cut a promo in the back, telling people that he would walk out as champion. And we get a lot of these promos from Steve Corino throughout the night. He is in the triple threat ladder match for the ECW title in the secondary main event, shall we say? Because it's not the main event, but it's a main event, and it's a really good match. Things really starting to heat up now on Guilty as Charged as we get 2 hardcore legends, 2 ECW legends in the ring having an all-out brawl in an I Quit match. Now, ECW is known for its extremeness in terms of its wrestling, and this was no different. Of course, there is no rules in an I Quit match. It would just require you to make your opponent say, I quit. Now, C.W. Anderson versus Tommy Dreamer in this match. Brilliant match. Really enjoyed this one. 2 absolute veterans. And it starts off with an interruption of the introductions by the ring announcer, and these two bulls just lock horns and start beating the snot out of each other, and that's why I like it. Both of them get busted open. The Towel Boy even gets involved. His name is actually Towel Boy because he's the one with the towel that wipes the ropes. And he takes a superplex from C.W. Anderson, which is phenomenal. Incidentally, we've seen C.W. Anderson on NWA Power in the year of 2020. Obviously, NWA Power is not happening at the moment, but I'm glad to say that NWA actually is still doing little bits on air, so go and check out NWA's YouTube channel for more on that. I'd highly recommend it. The wrestling is quality, and of course you will have seen Thunder Rosa on AEW TV, but we're talking about ECW, and these two bulls are they're beating the snot out of each other. It's about respect. It's about beating respect into your opponent and out of your opponent. And I think these two respected each other anyway beforehand, but this match just put them above and beyond that respect. A spinebuster on the razor wire, which Tommy Dreamer gets out of a Christmas present, because why not? It's January. Yeah, January pay-per-view, still giving out Christmas presents. But it made for a good visual. He opened the present, he got the razor wire out of the box, and he gets spine-busted on it. Incidentally, the referee literally had to tear the razor wire away from his t-shirt. So we're not talking about toy razor wire here, we're talking about proper razor wire because it's ECW. And gets suplexed through two chairs as well during this melee. Dreamer gets his neck trapped in a chair, sent into the corner where another chair is set up. Looks absolutely sickening, and that sort of puts him out for a little bit because his head hits the chair and his throat hits and everything else. C.W. Anderson would bring out the tables. No sign of the Dudley Boys, but it was originated in ECW. And Dreamer Driver through the table and uses this to force C.W. Anderson to say the words "I quit." So C.W. Anderson brings in the table. It would ultimately become his downfall. He wraps him up in the aftermath of the table. I'm not even sure what he used. It's some kind of taping that was on the table underneath. I'm going to give this match, because it was absolutely brutal, I'm going to give it 3.5 cheap shots out of 5. Brutal match is what it is. It was nasty, it was hardcore, it was EC dub. So next we had another backstage segment with Just Incredible and Francine, as well as Missy Hayek and Steve Corino once again. Before going into a 3-way #1 contenders match, 3-way dance for the #1 contendership, for the tag titles, in fact, it is. So it's Mikey Whipwreck and Tajiri, fabulous tag team, versus Kid Cash and Super Crazy versus Little Guido and Tony Mamaluke. Now, out of all of those, I think it's Whipwreck and Mamaluke who never appeared in WWE television. I may be wrong in that, but Tajiri certainly did. Everyone remembers Tajiri. Those buzzsaw-like kicks were very, very brutal. So, actually, really good 3-way dance here. The triple threat rules are in force. Obviously, the match breaks down pretty quickly, as would any match of this kind in ECW, but we get to see some really good tag team wrestling, some really good maneuvers. It's high octane. It's exactly what you want from these guys that are basically in the cruiserweight division. Maybe no, I would say Whipwreck is, and this is basically a cruiserweight tag team match here. But we, after all the melees and people going outside the ring and just beating tar out of each other. We do get a double tiger suplex from Whipwreck and Tajiri onto the FBI, which is Little Guido and Tony Mamaluke for the win. Get the feeling that these two were the fan favourites here because they were so nuts. I mean, it was just a really, really good match. Really enjoyed this one. And again, I'm going to give this one a 3.5 cheap shots out of 5 because it was great. It was really fun from start to finish. Get the feeling that they were just putting everything into it, and you could tell they didn't miss a beat. It was, like I say, it was high octane, and it was a true triple threat tag team match with 3 people in the ring and 3 people on the outside. Like I say, that didn't last very long, but it was ultimately a very, very enjoyable match from these 3 fantastic teams. Tajiri and Mikey Whipwreck would get a number 1 contenders match for winning the number 1 contenders match rather, and would become number 1 contenders for the ECW Tag Team Champions, held by Roadkill and Danny Doring. The next match follows a segment where Sandman talks about his match in the 3-way dance ladder match for the ECW Championship, and talks about Steve Corino and Just Incredible along the way. Next match is another tag team match. A lot of tag team matches here. Get the feeling, again, there's a lot of feelings on this one, that a lot of these people were put in to give them a pay-per-view paycheck. We get Simon Diamond and Johnny Swinger with Dawn Marie, who... Swinger? No, it's Simon Diamond. No, it isn't. It is Johnny Swinger looking at the TV, who brings his own valet out, and we get to see Blue Boy with Jasmine. He enlists their help. The Blue Boy, Blue meaning, looking decent actually. He's lost a bit of weight and coming out with Jasmine, who you can see on your TV screen now, and looking very, very blue. Enlists them, gets the services of Jasmine. Blue Boy is in there. Balls Mahoney and Chilly Willy would come out for their match now and make their way to the ring. And in the words of the former SmackDown general manager Teddy Long, we've got a tag match player, and this is the point where Rhino would come down to the ring, gore everybody, including Dawn Marie, Chilly Willy, Blue Boy, and hits a super pile driver on Jasmine, who I'm not sure who she is, but she doesn't look much like a wrestler. I could be very wrong. She could be a very good wrestler, but a super pile driver on someone who's not a wrestler off the second rope and just hitting that pile driver. Wow. It's not really a match. It didn't really turn out to be a match, just more like an interlude between matches. But the match is over. I'm not going to give a review score on this one because it would be 0. Because there was no match really. It was just a very long segment in which lots of people talked, and we got to see some very good looking women along the way, which I like. It's ECW way. Your next match is the 3-way dance for the ECW Championship, and it is for, like I say, it's for the ECW Championship, and involves the Sandman with his network dubbed music, Just Incredible, and Steve Corino, who is the current ECW champion. These 3 would absolutely tear the house down. Sandman actually looking good after drinking beer, spitting it all over the audience and smashing the can on his head. Certainly that would not happen in 2020, but thank goodness we are 20 years in the future of this. I say thank goodness for this because we're currently living in a pandemic. Spitting over people is not good at the best of times, but certainly now you would not accept that happening. Although, being the ECW crowd, they'd probably go, yeah, wicked, But you know, wrestling as a whole in general is a little bit like that anyway. Ladders in the ring to start off with, very unusual, and another ladder coming in later on as well. Steve Corino and Just Incredible would team up against the Sandman at a certain point in this match, with the ladder set up in between Sandman's legs and 2 chairs to hand. They would smack the ladder straight into the private parts of the Sandman, probably making him drink a little bit more that night, in fact, because it looked absolutely nasty. There was tables involved, there was ladders involved, and of course there was chairs, a prelude, maybe not, to the TLC match that would happen at WrestleMania 17 or X7, because you know it's gritty, it's 2001. A massive ladder would then be brought into the ring, so that you know, the guys could climb up the ladder. Basically, the ladders that they were using looked like they'd been down to, I think it's Home Depot in America, looked like they'd been down to Home Depot that afternoon and bought 2 painters' ladders, because the little tray on the side for the ladders, you know, when WWE do things, they have the 2-sided ladders and stuff. This was a rinky-dink 1-sided ladder. In fact, at one point they were trying to climb up the ladder and the ladder broke. Now, it was being used as a weapon during the whole of the match, so I can forgive it for that, but it certainly is not the table. Hello, Matthew. And a massive ladder is brought in by Just Incredible, and the belt gets moved upwards. Just Incredible is trying to get the title. The belt gets moved upwards into the sky on the crane. Steve Corino goes face first through the table, thanks to Just Incredible, who they're both beating each other up on the ladder at the time, and Just Incredible joins him. Those 2 are out. The table was set up underneath the ladder. Sandman ascends to the top of the ECW mountain by claiming that ECW title for the 4th time, I believe, at this point, and retrieves the championship to win. All 3 men gain a lot of respect for each other, and there is handshakes, something else that would not happen in 2021, because handshakes now are a thing of the past, or at least for the time being. It's really weird. I'm starting a new job, and yeah, I'm going to go in to my new place of work. I'm not going to be able to shake anybody's hand or anything like that, because it's not a thing anymore. I'm also going to be wearing a mask, which is very strange. But the handshakes happen for the 3 participants in the match. Lots of respect gained in this one, and a really good match. But the Baldies attack once again. They haven't got a match, but the Baldies attack all 3 of these guys, and we do get an impromptu match. But for this match in particular, I'm going to give it 4 cheap shots out of 5. Fantastic match. Really turned on the style in this one. I can say style, it's the ladder match. Really turned it on for this one. Really good match. All 3 guys deserve absolute credit, and it made them all credible. I do apologise for my really bad wrestling pun jokes. No, I don't really. So in the aftermath of the 3-way dance for the ECW Championship, as Steve Corino and Just Incredible beat the Baldies up to the outside and eventually outside of the arena, Rhino would appear and gore the brand new ECW champion and demand a match after swearing quite a bit, and obviously I can't have the sound on anyway, but he said some not very nice things about the new ECW champion. We would eventually get a title match. The Sandman would accept said challenge, and this match wouldn't last very long, although the Sandman did put up a little bit of a fight. The gore through the table and the gore through the table, and then a table pile driver to the outside gave Rhino the opportunity to get a near fall. on both occasions. Rhino would become the new ECW champion after a third Gore, which put the ECW champion away. We get a new champion, another new champion on the ECW pay-per-view known as Guilty as Charged 2001. And at that point, Cyrus would call out anybody who dares to challenge the new champion. Of course, nobody would accept. So Cyrus would be in the ring gloating about his champions, his guys win for the championship, saying that they challenge anybody. All of a sudden the music hits and we get a visit from an old friend of ECW, the one and only, very high, Rob Van Dam, who would come down to the ring to accept the challenge. Rhino would disappear and Jerry Lynn would come down and attack RVD as he made his triumphant return to the Hammerstein Ballroom and of course ECW. Rob Van Dam has a lot of unfinished business with Rhino, but we would get Jerry Lynn versus Rob Van Dam instead. Rhino leaves with the title intact and we get a match here instead. Joe Gerber gets a DDT on Cyrus, and after a brutal match between Jerry Lynn and RVD, again both would appear in WWE very soon after this pay-per-view. RVD in full force here and Jerry Lynn showing exactly what he can do as well. The chairs would come into play very soon into the match because that's how RVD rolls. Joe Gerber hits a DDT and to Cyrus, gets him out of the way because Cyrus would come down to the ring again. He was there, right there on your television set, on my television set, which you're watching on something, and then get his help to hit the Van Daminator for the win. And really, again, great match. Gets the Van Daminator, hits the Van Terminator. So the Van Daminator throws the chair into them and kicks it in the face, and the Van Terminator is the coast to coast with the chair in front of the face. There's a lot of chairs to face here. In fact, I'm pretty sure, I'm actually shocked that WWE didn't do a t-shirt that said chairs to faces for Rob Van Dam. He gets the win. Rob Van Dam returns triumphantly. Absolutely crazy. I should mention as well, this was an Extreme Rules match because it's extreme. It is ECW. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up. I'm doing all sorts of things at the moment. Extreme Rules match, and you know, Van Dam was very much in his element on this one, and he gets the win. I'm going to give this one 4 out of 5 cheap shots, and that brings us to the end of our pay-per-view. The crowd going wild for Rob Van Dam, of course, because everyone wants to see Rob Van Dam do his thing in ECW. So, what did I think of Guilty as Charged as a whole pay-per-view? Like I say, it was the very last pay-per-view. Of course, no Sabu involved in this. I think he was in WCW and not being used at the time. But as a whole pay-per-view, again, you can tell it was a last throw of the dice. It was the last time they would be on television for pay-per-view. And yeah, it's a really good pay-per-view. Apart from the first couple of matches, which weren't really matches, and the one in the middle, which was supposed to be a match, but didn't turn out to be a match. So it's a decent pay-per-view. I definitely, if you're an ECW fan, would go back and watch this one. I'm sure there's better pay-per-views before it, but I was interested in this one because I'm also doing the WCW pay-per-views, the last few pay-per-views for them, and I'm going to watch the Nitro before WrestleMania, and ultimately I'm going to watch WrestleMania X7 with my good friend Tom Priest, who we bonded over this pay-per-view when we was back at university, a pay-per-view that changed the landscape of WWE for the better at the time, going into bigger arenas, doing bigger shows, putting on a massive show for WrestleMania, 4 hours long at this point. I think it stretches out to 8 hours now, pretty much, going over 2 nights in 2020, just as the pandemic started. But yeah, decent pay-per-view, and yeah, sad to see that ECW never really hit its stride in the reimagining in WWE, because it just wasn't extreme. It was just ECW written on a razor blade. It wasn't. It was a shadow of its former self, because they brought it back in the HD era, which was also the PG era, and it just was never really going to take off, I don't think. And it just had such a rabid fan base that it was never really. I mean, One Night Stand 2005, 2006 were great, absolutely fantastic. I'll get to those in about 4 years' time if I'm still doing this. But yeah, this really showed exactly what ECW was about. Also showed and showcased a lot of talent that WWE would pick up, and yeah, really good. Definitely suggest you watch it. As this plays in the background, I'm going to bid you adieu. I'm going to say Happy New Year once again. Got to stay safe and stay hydrated and all that kind of stuff. Make sure you stay fit and healthy, because the new version of the virus is a bit like a chair shot to the head. There's not much you can do about it, but you can get your hands up in front of your face. And on that note, I'm going to see you there. You are the Cheap Shot Nation. I've been your host Luke, and this has been Guilty as Charged 2001, the very last ECW pay-per-view. I'd suggest you watch it. Thank you very much, and goodbye.